Best people.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mayor has to, oh, what's that?
No, I'm kidding, they were delicious.
He was telling you I ate.
At this time, I'd like to call to order the Common Council, City of Plattsburgh Finance and Community Development Committee meeting. It is 5:01 PM. First item on tonight's agenda is the approval of the minutes of the November 9th, 2023 Finance and Community Development Committee. I'll take a motion, approve the minutes. Motion by Councilor Towns, second by Councilor Bob. If there are no changes, deletions, or alterations, I'll take an all in favor to approve the minutes.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Item 2.1, discussion of the 2023 year-to-date report. Again, standard report provided to council. There's no discussion or questions about that. We'll move on to business. Items 2.2 and 2.9 are associated to changes and adoptions, 2.8, changes and adoptions of the amendments as discussed during work sessions with council. We'll start with item 2.2, draft resolution amend the mayor's budget for the 2024 data processing. Motion by Councilor Bob, second. Thank you, Councilor Talon. Any discussion on this item? All in favor to move this item to the regular agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Item 2.3, draft resolution amending mayor's budget 2024 for assessment fees. Motion. Councilor Kelly, second. Councilor Bach, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Y'all all right down there? Okay. Item two-
Adulting is complicated.
Pardon?
Just want to say that for the record.
What is it? What is?
Adulting is complicated.
I've had this week.
Well, you passed, very good, something.
Yeah,
I
that's fair
would
enough.
say that.
Fair enough, thank you. 2.4, draft resolution amend the mayor's budget for 2024 for debt service. Motion. Councilor Kelly, second. Councilor Bach, discussion.
Yeah, can I get a clearer explanation of this? I mean, I think I understand it, but Richard I understand the interest rate change, that part I understand.
And that's it.
No, I get that part, I was just.
That's all there is to it.
But it says with corresponding increases to general water and debt service funds, interfund debt service revenue transfers with the course. So can you explain that a little?
That's all the accounts that have to be changed when it
Okay.
comes to saying, here's the new debt service appropriations based on the interest rate changing from when we estimated it in September for the mayor's budget. Then we got final interest rate when we floated the loan in November. It's 4.75, which is 4%. So all those accounts were affected by the interest rate increase.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Item 2.5, amend the mayor's budget for 2024 MLD debt service. Motion. Councilor Bob, second. Councilor Kelly, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. 2.6, draft resolution amend the mayor's budget for 2024 DPW street maintenance. Motion. Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor Bob, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Draft resolution, 2.7, draft resolution amend the mayor's budget for 2024 council pay increase. Motion. Councilor Bob.
Is there a second on that?
Not yet, sir. You want to be the one? Councilor Moore,
Okay,
thank you for participating.
I just wanted, I had a comment. on-
Any discussion, sorry.
Yes, I do have a comment.
Please.
I really am not gonna be in favor of moving this forward at this time because the charter needs to be cleared up on this. Okay? The compensation for counselors established, this, I'm reading this from the charter, compensation for counselors shall be established by local law, which this is. Except that changes may not be effective during the term of office, which the change was approved. The committee that redid the charter missed this. At the time that this was written, all terms are 2 years. The mayor and all the councilors were voted in at the same time. So what they were saying here was you could, anytime between 0 and 2, you could vote to change the salaries. They would all be at the same time. However, we changed to the 3-year, and they probably missed this. I don't think I would have caught it either. But it was intended that there would be the next term of office, which would have been in 2 years for everyone. So I think this needs to be straightened out, especially in the light of, I'm about 90% sure the state is going to change elections to be that they only happen in even years. They're working on it right now, it's probably going to pass. This would need to be changed again because we would not be able to elect people every 2 years, or a person, 2 counselors every year. That would be thrown out too. So I think we really need to fix this before we move forward with the change in the money, because it was never intended that some people would get it 1 year, some people would get it another year. That's how that slipped through. But I mean, if you read this according to how things are now, it's different. But back then it wasn't. Everybody, and the reason they switched it because you could get a new mayor and all new council, and I guess people went to Harvard. Now, you might remember that stuff, Mike.
Oh, I ran that year when we were almost at a full new council, a full new, like a brand new mayor, all at the same time.
Anyway, my suggestion would be to fix this before we move forward with it.
Just a clarification on the state changes to voting. That was already passed at the state level, and it affects towns, and it does not affect mayors. So villages and cities, that does not affect villages and cities.
Okay, well, it still needs to be fixed.
But that point is taken.
Councilor Moore, what are you recommending to fix it?
Well, we need to change, I believe we can do that by a simple vote for minor changes in the charter. So I think we should.
But what's the fix? Because I think the strategy was to have a staggered term, so you don't have a complete term.
No, staggered terms are fine, but this was written when everybody got elected. Election cycle was the same.
What the logical fix would be, because you have staggered terms and you can't affect this competition during any council term.
Well, what most places do is they get 1 election cycle. That's what you should say, 1 election cycle, so you couldn't vote yourself a raise for this election cycle, next election cycle, you would be able to do that. That's pretty common. Actually, that's the way most places do it. 1 election cycle.
I'm now confused because I think that's what that is saying. The election cycle for councilors is 3 years. The election cycle for Ward 2 and Ward 5 are up now. The next election cycle is next year.
Yeah, what I'm saying though,
Yeah.
this was written when it was 2 years for everybody.
Okay.
Okay, so everybody was treated the same. What you're doing by going by this old clause in here is you're accepting people, there's no way that everybody should get it or not get it at the same time. That's
Okay,
completely anathema to what was originally in the charter.
so is there a recommended change to, and does that change require local law?
Yes, it would,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, if you were to delay this until 2026, would that require a change to the local law? Just nobody gets a raise until 2026.
Right.
Yeah,
By then, we will have gone through all the
Yeah,
elections.
we
Well,
would have to make sure that was the end of the term of anyone that was voting on that local law. So we'd have to time it out, whether it's 26 or 27. We'd have to double check that, but that could be a potential solution.
That'd be the only option I could think of other than changing the charter. It's fine also.
So I'm sorry, so the the recommendation is either change the charter by local law to include all counselors increase, or all counselor change in compensation regardless of when their term or when their election cycle is. So that's one option. That does require local law. The second option is to approve the increase to council compensation, but don't apply all of it until 2026 and apply it to everybody.
Well, you know, I just want to say that a lot of places do this different. The county does it, they don't wait. They just put it in the budget and boom, there it is.
Yeah,
So that would be,
yes, they do.
that would be a possible solution also.
My suggestion would be to change local law. I mean, I advocated for this change, I continue to advocate for this change. I think it would be great, and I think it should be effective for everybody immediately. That would be the most fair way. So if there's a way to adjust that, so that could be how it happens, that's what I would most support.
But we're out of time.
Well, I would say then, if it's still the will of the council to change council pay, then I'd recommend that we work that out in a budget adjustment, that Rich and I can go back to the budget, we take a look at what that increase is going to be. I think it would be 30,000 in total.
Yeah.
And we make sure that money is allocated in the budget. We put forth a local law the first or second meeting of the year to change counselor compensation. And then once that local law passes, then it then just gets applied to everybody all at the same time.
I think that would be a better idea.
No. So we'd have to pass local laws to change C3-5 compensation to just read not, whatever the language would be, it would just be applicable now or whenever it's voted upon or approved by the council.
There was, when I was preparing the local law that was in front of everyone, there was some some additional hurdles or restrictions if you change council pay during the councilor's term. I believe it triggered a referendum.
A permissive referendum or
I have to double check that, but at least a referendum. Yeah.
I mean, like, I think it would automatically, any changes to pay would automatically trigger a permissive referendum if the necessary petition for that referendum were presented, or the necessary votes for that petition were presented. But
I do know the referendum was avoided if it affects it after the term of the current council voting upon it.
yes, but the referendum would have to be, the petition for the referendum would have to be created at that point. That's when the pause on that change in salary compensation would be enacted until the referendum either passed or failed.
Yeah.
So we'll double check that, but I don't think that it's automatically required to be referendum to just change council pay. But we'll double check that.
Yeah, but we can.
Sorry,
minor
just
changes- Minor changes we could do between any time.
Minor changes to the code and the charter is fine, but what we're talking about specifically is there the requirement of a referendum to change council compensation that is not listed in the charter, or if it is just a permissive referendum, if a group of citizens challenge the compensation change, and if that's the case, then the compensation change would have to be postponed until that referendum were approved.
Yeah, that's a pretty complicated process. I can't imagine that would happen.
I don't imagine it would be either, but,
Gotta get a lot of signatures for that.
people get struck by lightning.
I'd just like to say that whoever wrote that section of the charter was a genius when it comes to fiscal conservatism, because they knew it was going to be extremely hard to give a city councilor a raise. And the thing that bothers me most about that is that it's become a little bit difficult to find candidates in some races. And if we want to increase democracy, then we will increase councilor salaries to attract more people to run.
So does that sound like a pretty fair path forward? It's gonna be delayed a little bit, but if it's still the attitude of the council and the will of the council, that's a path forward that, excuse me, that we can, again, postpone postpone, introduce local law, postpone this item, introduce local law that would be passed, or that would be introduced this first or second meeting of January. Go through the process of public hearing, of course. It would then be approved, or assuming it would be approved by members of council. And at that point, that's when we would enact compensation change for all 6 counselors. But that also, you would have to allow us some time to go back into the budget to figure out where this additional funding, the 20,000, where that additional funding may come from.
Well, do you want to leave this in the budget as an amendment, as a placeholder? For when that happens, if it happens?
No, so what would happen is, let Richard and I go back to the drawing board. We would then introduce that item on the 21st, which would be a budget amendment, amending that counselor pay, and we would just have to figure out where that money would come from. So, but it would be a budget amendment. It would be a budget amendment as all of these are.
Same as that.
Yes.
You could just increase this one to 30,000 and leave it the same kind of accounting, and you could do if you don't next year.
The only challenge with that is we're looking at taking this from a contingency fund, and oftentimes that's left when, in cases of emergency, so I don't want to leave it out there, and maybe there's something else that we can pull from or pick from or
Transfers to capital fund, maybe?
cut from, I don't know, so,
We can look at that, yes.
okay, so, there,
Maybe cut some overtime from some of the departments.
okay, fair enough,
Budget neutral.
budget neutral, all right, fair enough,
I think that, I don't know, I think that charter was set up that way so that even when it was terms for 3 years, you don't give yourself a raise while you're in term of office, because you could do that every single budget year if you wanted to. Because you are the actual ones who are voting on whether or not it goes through. This is a safeguard, and it was in the prior charter as well, because if you voted to give a raise, it was for the next administration.
Yeah, which was no more than 2 years and up to,
3 years, but
no, the terms for 2 years for everyone.
2 or 3, it doesn't matter.
2.
It's
It doesn't
the fact
matter.
that it was a safeguard that you could propose the raise, but it wouldn't enact until the next voting cycle.
which
Which was 2 years when this was written.
when that was rewritten. I don't know, I wasn't part of the process, I don't know what they considered or didn't consider, but it does sound like there's a pathway forward, for everybody to do it all at the same time, all right?
So in terms of this resolution,
Where are we at?
it would need to be
2.7.
withdrawn.
Yeah, we'll just, so there's a call to question, there's a call to question on the floor right now. I'll take a motion to withdraw this item. Counselor Gibbs, second by Counselor Bob, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we've now withdrawn 2.7 from, we've withdrawn this item. And it will just, so the council and everybody's aware, we will go back and we will revise this item. Okay?
And that'll show up on the next council meeting.
That will show up on the 21st, yes, correct, thank you. 2.8, draft resolution amend mayor's budget for 2024 community development regular pay motion. Counselor Bob, second. Counselor Kelly, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. 2.9, draft resolution adopting the reviser's management salary effective January 1st, 2024 motion. Counselor Kelly, second. Counselor Bob, discussion. Yes. Discussion?
Oh, discussion, I didn't know if there was any, I just was getting a motion.
Oh, no, well, I do have something to say
Go
about
for it.
this. The first iteration of this happened in 2018, 10 days before the new council members came on. I remember, I don't know if Councilor Gibbs remembers this, but I was pretty upset that they voted on this before the 2 new councilors came on, which was her and I. I really think that this should be moved forward to where the 2 new councilors will be able to weigh in on this. So I'm thinking they should have a say in this. This is pretty important, pretty big, and they will be living with it, so. I don't know, we shouldn't just, well, I remember how angry I was that it went through before I got a shot at it, so. I don't know how Councilor Gibbs feels on this, but I remember being pretty upset because it was talked about for a long time, and then all of a sudden came up 10 days before we took office and didn't get anything for it, so, just saying.
Yeah, I agree. I remember that meeting, and I agree with you.
So this is this is the salary schedule, and then there's a compensation package, which are two different items. So the salary schedule, as discussed, is actively built into the budget. And then the compensation package is separate.
And that's the days off and.
Correct, that's the holiday schedule, that's the ability for managers of 20+ years to use some credit of accrued time towards their 15% benefit contribution. So this is a budget item currently is built into the budget.
What is the purpose of this exactly?
This is compensation, this is manager salary compensation. This is salary, this is a salary change.
Well, there again, I would say, I think, I would like to see the new counselors get to weigh in on this.
I do too.
Do you anticipate that it won't pass when these two new councils come on board?
I don't know what to anticipate, I haven't, discussed any of this with any of them. I do remember how angry I was that I did not get to vote on that when it's 10 days from taking office.
So what would we, I mean, how would this impact, or would this essentially mean kind of putting the entire budget on kind of the back burner until
Well,
January?
we have until January 14th to vote on the budget. I mean, we don't have to vote on the budget tonight or next week. If this was reintroduced in the first meeting in January, and then the budget is voted on at the same time, we would be within the time frame of the charter. We wouldn't be out of order at all. So that is a possibility.
Would their salary be retroactive to January 1st?
The item is effective January 1, 2024. So if you're looking at the first meeting of the month as potentially the 4th of January, so it would be going back 3 days.
Yeah, I think it's doable.
Well, I'll make a motion, I mean, this is how we do it. I'll make a motion to withdraw the item for future consideration. Can I get a second?
I'll say,
We didn't have to call the question first motion.
That's 2.9 we're talking about.
You have a first and a second, we need to vote on that first.
Right.
Dr. Samir.
Oh.
Dr. Vivas, I'm
No.
sorry.
So the call to question was there, motion and second discussion. There's a motion on the table to withdraw this item for consideration.
Well, we need a roll call on whether or not to withdraw.
There's the question then comes is when does the budget get passed? That's gonna be the question.
Well, we have until the 14th. I mean, if we're gonna put this.
Yeah, I wouldn't be so we can just leave it, because it presses up against operations, it presses up against other concerns about opening the year without a budget.
well, we could leave this out of the budget and add it in after the first of the year.
Kind of
This,
like
this item, I mean, this doesn't need to hold the whole budget. We could just postpone these two items until after the first of the year. Everything else is still there.
Also a fair point.
Pardon?
I said that's a fair point as well.
All right, motion to withdraw, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Item 2.2 10, draft resolution adopting management compensation package 602 of the employee handbook effective January 1st, 2024. Motion. Counselor Kelly, second. Counselor Talon.
I would say we should treat this the same way. This is a pretty wide sweeping thing. I really think it needs more deliberation than just getting this a couple days ago. So it's a very important item. And I remember how much discussion there was on the initial version of this. I think this should be left out until after the first year also.
Are you making a motion to withdraw, Jeff?
Yes, I am.
I'll second that motion.
Is there any discussion?
Would this affect, their New Year's Day as a holiday, or?
I mean, it affects their holiday schedule, right? The whole challenge with the holiday schedule is that we've got managers here while the rest of the city's closed. Doesn't make much sense, and they're obligated to do so regardless of who's sitting in the mayor's seat. That's one of the changes though, right? The other things is again, I don't see, and you know, I'm not trying to be argumentative with Councilor Moore here. I don't see this as being a sweeping change. There's a couple caveats in here to change some of the language of the compensation package. Does not rewrite the compensation package, and it really deals with a handful of managers.
There are a lot of changes. I was very familiar with the first one, and I tell you, this one has a lot of changes in it too.
So again, I think I think it's perfectly appropriate for us to withdraw this item and reintroduce them at the same time, 2.9 and 2.10 in January.
There's a
reconsideration.
That would not hold up our budget.
There's a call to withdraw this item. All in favor? Councilor Talon, do you have anything else? Or are you looking?
Just again, like the whole New Year's.
Yeah, so,
They're supposed to have New Year's Day
so
off,
currently,
so-
under the current manager comp schedule, New Year's Day is a holiday. So either way, it's gonna affect New Year's Day.
Okay.
New Year's
Okay.
Eve would be added with.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, all in favor of
It's
withdrawal?
not effective until July. Aye.
Any opposed?
Right.
Uh, 12.1 draft resolution adopted 2023, final revised, budget motion.
Or are we doing 2.11?
2 yep. Item 2.11 draft resolution adopted 2024 city of Plattsburgh budget as amended motion. Councilor Bott, second. Councilor Moore, discussion.
So this adopts, basically, it accepts 2 through 6, is that what this says?
Correct.
Okay.
And then 2.8 as well, right?
No, we withdrew 27, 28, 29. Wait,
No.
No,
27, 29, 210.
Okay.
28 carried to the regular meeting.
Right. Okay.
Discussion. Do you have a motion? Motion and second?
We do.
Discussion.
Does this mean we're adopting the budget next week?
This would effectively adopt the budget as amended with the items that would be approved for the next regular meeting.
Then are we going to adopt the 2023 final revised budget?
That should say 2024.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, these are different, this is different budget amendments. I apologize.
Wait.
Yeah,
So it's
there's a-
2.1.
Sorry, we'll come back to 2.12, because it's that's a separate end of year budget adjustment that we do every single year to balance these
All right, so then 2.11 is an adoption of the budget.
as amended,
With the amendments we have.
Got it now.
To move it to the regular.
To
meeting.
make it to the regular.
to move it to the regular.
Okay, then I do have a question, because I thought that's what 2.12 is doing. I had a question about salary. and the percentage in our budget that is dedicated to salary. Richard, I don't know if that is something that you can tell us what that percentage is off the top of your head in relationship to the larger budget. What is the percentage of our budget that is dedicated to salary and benefits for employees?
Salary and benefits?
Yeah. Do you know what that is?
It's probably 70% in the general fund. I know that the overall payroll is close to 16 million.
Right, I did some numbers and I came up with something a little more than that. For salary, like I was just going through looking at salary, and I just wasn't sure how,
All the salary and payroll and overtime.
not overtime, just salary, didn't even look at overtime.
Payroll is part of it.
Yes, I'm aware. And I just didn't know how to calculate to understand what the percentage was of that in relationship to the larger budget, and that's why I asked that. So we're about 70%.
Well, when you talk about payroll and benefits,
Mhm.
yeah, you're talking about all payroll,
Yes.
including overtime, including all sorts of compensation pays, non-employee compensation, as well as all the benefits. And in
Right.
the general fund, that's about a 70% figure. In the other funds, it's not as high. But if you're just looking at payroll, it's roughly 16 million, all payroll items in, against roughly a $60 million budget across the city. But if you want to know just what salaries are for a specific group, say for the managers,
No.
that's roughly a $2 million mark.
That's not what I was asking. I'm looking at all salary for the entire city, which I'm pretty sure I came up with a number, and then I was trying to understand that in relationship to the $60 million budget, and I was just trying to understand where we were. And I didn't factor in benefits, and I didn't factor in overtime, so that's why I asked you.
So it's an easy number for us to pull out, just the 1,100 items, which is the salary, payroll, regular payroll items, and just count for the general fund and then say, here's the total general fund budget and give you a percentage. You can do that in a couple of minutes tomorrow.
Oh, could you?
Yeah.
Okay. Richard, at what point how can I say this? At what point does the percent of the budget dedicated to salary become something that we should be concerned about? Is going beyond a 70% threshold, putting us in some kind of danger zone in relationship to the larger budget? Like what is the threshold where we need to be really concerned?
That's a very subjective question.
Like if it were 80%, if it were 90%.
Is a 50% increase to payroll too much? Apparently for the counselors, it's not. It only represents $30,000 of all counselors.
Ouch.
Okay. No, it's a subjective question. I mean, it's very hard to say what's important and what isn't important when you're looking at, say, a 1% increase for the managers of the city being about a $20,000 item in a given year for all managers, and the impact of the general fund being only about $8,000.
Richard, my question wasn't meant to try and pit one thing against the other. I'm asking for your expert opinion of when we look at how much salary we pay in relationship to the larger budget. I'm just trying to understand, is there a point when we should become concerned? And that was the question. It wasn't meant to pit one thing against another.
I know, but the subjectiveness of it is, all right, we're worried about people keeping up with inflation. That was a big concern in 2023. So does that limit what you're going to do for those salary increases based on a concern for the budget? Or
No, it's
are
just
you
a question.
Oh, I know.
It's just a question.
I know it's just a
think,
question.
sorry, I think what Richard's trying to say is it is subjective. If you look at, if you look at business in general, the majority of the expense, which runs anywhere between 60 to 80% of expenses in a business, is going to be payroll.
No, I understand that. I'm a
Okay.
teacher, and municipal budgets are
Sure.
very similar to school budgets.
Right.
Okay, well, thank you for your information. I appreciate it, as always.
If you look at the general fund with payroll and benefits, is 70% too high? In my opinion, yes, it would be. It's way too high. Is it sustainable? For maybe the next 4 or 5 years, but eventually it's going to catch up with us again as payroll increases continue, and then you're going to be butting up against increases in taxes that are above the 2% tax cap, which we experienced in 16, 17, 18. We had to raise taxes 15% over 4 years, and that was essentially to catch up to our costs.
Yeah, that's exactly, pretty much what I'm asking.
Yeah.
So, I have another question about, post-employment benefits, because I know we pay as we go.
Yeah.
And, so I know we're paying, we're allocating in the budget based on people who are retired at that snapshot.
Right.
One thing I don't understand is, when we have people retire, how do we, so we're paying as we go, we have a budget set, and then people retire. How does that, get factored or calculated in the budget as we go? How does it affect that approved budget? Now we have people who are retiring and we've got to pay those OPEB as we go. Like, you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah, we pay the actual healthcare costs on an annual basis for active employees and for retirees. So if the person's active this year and retire next year, it's pretty much the same cost.
Okay,
The increased cost would be if you replace this job with someone else who has healthcare costs coming in on the active side.
okay.
Okay, so as the numbers of your population go up, your healthcare costs are gonna go up. But the OPEB number, once again, you gotta keep that in mind, is a very subjective issue too. It's an 85 to 90-year projection of what your total healthcare costs are gonna be added up over that entire time frame, discounted to a current value. It's a pretty meaningless number because it's so out of context with what's happening today. When we pay costs today, they're at today's cost. What are their costs going to be 90 years from now? Nobody knows that.
Right.
Actuaries.
It's never going down though.
Huh?
It's never going down.
No, you don't know. We had an OPEB cost, it was 195 million one year, and then it's reduced 50 million by the next year. Why? Trump took out the Cadillac tax from expensive healthcare plans. It reduced our OPEB obligation by 50 million, just like that, in 1 year. And so those kind of things can affect it. The economy can affect it. A lot of things can. Most actuaries say you can look about 10 years out and get a relatively accurate cost estimate of where you're going to be. But when you say to the end of everybody's life, currently where they are, it's a very subjective number. And that's why the state of New York doesn't allow us to book a cost and set revenue aside, set cash aside, to reserve for this to pay for in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I have a follow-up question. Richard, when you say the 70% of the general fund that's going to salary and benefits, is that also including retiree benefits? In that 70%, or is that just, that 70% just active employees?
Well, it's benefits for healthcare for retirees, yes.
Okay.
As far as retirement costs, that's being funded by the state.
But the healthcare piece
The
is part of
healthcare
that.
piece is part of
That's
it,
what I
for
was
all of the retired general fund employees.
Thank you.
Yep.
Where are we at, 211 still? Yep, here's a call question. All in favor to move this item to the meeting?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. 2.12 draft resolution adopting 2023 final revised budget motion. Councilor Bob, second. Councilor Taylor, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Item 3.1 draft resolution authorizing extension to marina management agreement motion. Councilor Bob, second. Councilor Talon, discussion.
Yes, I just have a question. I read the resolution, I wasn't for it. So bad. Let me make sure I understand this. So are we going into an agreement with a different company because the boat basin is no longer able to manage the marina on our behalf? Is that what this is?
The Plattsburgh Boat Basin was sold.
Right.
To a separate party. They are now managed through a third-party management company, which which inherited the contract. This is an extension of that contract into next year to allow for a renegotiation of the contract with the new.
Okay, so they basically are gonna finish out the existing contracts?
The existing contract is finished out. We're extending that contract to allow for a negotiation window for next year operation, or the next several years of operation.
But
So this just gives you guys till February.
yes, that's what I'm asking.
It's an ex,
Okay.
yes, it's an extension of the existing contract.
Got it, okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call. No, I'm sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 4.1, draft resolution authorizing mayor to attend 2024 conferences, legislative meetings. Motion, Councilor Bob, second, Councilor Talon. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Any new business come before the council? No, come before the committee? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Motion by Councilor Gibbs, second by Councilor Bob, all in favor?
Aye.